to put it back together the way that it was when it was having the problem, to sort of reconstruct what happened and how I ended up finding the solution that got the computer to finish booting. So what it was doing before, and I haven't actually powered it up since I put it back together, so hopefully it will do the same thing that it was doing before. Was it would boot up and it would give me a 950 status code here. And these 3 digits, according to the manual, are a cursor position. So once the computer started up, it will show you what the vertical position is, or the horizontal position of the cursor is on screen. When it's going through the self-test, it'll show you other codes and things like that. So let's just kind of flip this thing on and we'll walk through it. But you can see I've got this thing is pretty much entirely denuded for the sake of working on it. So okay, so this thing's got a cover on it. You've got a reset switch, you've got a run and a stop switch, and then you've got IPL. And the IPL is sort of a, it means initial program load. There wasn't, people didn't really say that a computer booted during this time. You had to go through an IPL process. So the idea is to processor stop, initiate IPL, and then run. It'd go through and start to boot off disk, and then it would come up 950 and completely halt with nothing on the screen. When I first started messing with this computer years ago, I don't know, it wasn't years ago, it was more like maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago when I got it. I got to this point and had to start troubleshooting the best way I thought to do at the time. I noticed that there was no video on the screen. Let's turn that down. Right. So I thought there might be a problem with the monitor. Took the monitor apart, checked the caps, checked solder joints, checked all the other stuff. It seemed to be okay. Even scoped the video line coming out of the back plane and did get a TTL video signal there, so it didn't make sense why there was no picture on the screen other than there just not being any actual video content. It was just sort of a blank signal there. So of course I located the manual, and in the manual the list of post codes or diagnostic codes, 950 was not listed in there at all. Jumped from the low 900s to code 970, code 970 being a problem with the like a physical read error on the floppy drive, and we're not having that. So it was a head scratcher, and when I got to this point I kind of had to decide to set it aside. I didn't know what to do. I didn't feel like I had the tools and the time to continue to try to troubleshoot it further. And then one day, just actually yesterday, something dawned on me. I said, okay, well, maybe I need to try troubleshooting this thing and taking just more of a traditional approach. So what I did was I went and I removed all of the unnecessary peripheral boards here and tried starting it up. And what I found, I pulled out several of the boards here. Actually, this is, you can see you've got a board, 12 volts, 5 volts, one for the printer, one for the COM ports, where all the, I think it can accept up to 8 dumb terminals, one for the keyboard. You've got memory boards and video boards and other things here. So I started with these, and I started with the boards that are on this additional card cage here, which are some more memory boards and the Winchester hard disk controller. And lo and behold, I'll show you what happened. Kind of in a nutshell here. I ended up pulling out this board, which is the RGPRN, which is the printer controller. So this guy here. And it resulted in the system actually booting up. So with any luck, we can get it to start. Let's try it again. Now, I would love to have a slick tripod or another thing to hold the camera here. But for the meantime, you'll just have to deal with my fingers getting in the way and stuff. So we're going to stop, IPL, run. You can see it passes the 950 and comes up with this. And what's interesting is, according to the manual, this is called FDOS, Flexible Disk Operating System, which was a Shasta or a Diablo only operating system. Oh, and this keeps happening too. This something wrong with the brightness on this thing. So you have to look into this. Not sure if it's this pot is going bad or what it is. But what you've got is basically this command terminal here at the bottom. Okay. Yeah, I turn that down super low so the camera can grab it. You've got a command terminal that sits here on the bottom, and then you've got the rest of the display at the top. So what happens is the computer starts and it tries to auto-load this program called AP, which I haven't figured out yet. And then the system just halts. So the only way to get back out of this is to stop the processor, do a reset, and then run it again. And it will come up with a usable command interpreter. So you can see now we're in the cursor position mode, and it changes along with the cursor position on screen. Still have our command interpreter at the bottom. Whoa! Okay, it's doing this again. Yeah, very strange. Anyway. Not sure if that's coming through on camera. There we go. So the manual says there is a program that can be loaded off the floppy called Files. And that basically comes up with this, which is sort of like a primitive file manager. FLS is sort of like a, if you're familiar with DOS, a dir/w, whereas the LST is more like a dir, regular dir command, where it just goes down the list. So I'll show you here. FLS shows the contents of the disk, and you've got all these different programs on here. Some backups. We've got regular disk operating system commands that are pretty standard, like CMP, that's compare, copy, compress, just format, stuff like that. And the strange thing is, oh, I changed the label of the disk to my name, so actually I changed it, the label of the disk to IPL and the owner name as myself. So the issue I'm having here, some of these programs will load okay, so yeah, that's the compare routine. That one loads, and I'm not exactly sure how to exit the program yet, so I'm just going to do a kind of a reset like that. And Oh, okay, we need to reload the files. Alright, now we can do LSD. So what I did here, again, if you're familiar with the dir command in DOS, then you know you can do dir, which sort of just gives you a lengthy directory listing of the contents of a file or a disk or a folder. Without the /p, it just runs on and on and on. So I'll pop the cover back on this thing so these controls make more sense. But basically, the processor, you can halt the processor. This is stop, this is run. So in order to stop the list, I just turn it to stop, and then when we go run, it will continue. In that way. So I'm going to put the cover back on. Oh, actually, before I do, I want to document the, what's under this thing. This power supply over here is an auxiliary supply and is designed to provide power to just this auxiliary card gauge here. One thing I ran into when I first got this computer and I first powered it up, it was on for about 15 seconds and then smoke started rolling out of it, of course. And it's coming out of this area. And you see we've got yet another power supply bolted up in here, which is 48 volts. What this is a power supply for the printer, and this thing has a dedicated, I'm not sure if it's a line printer or a daisy roll printer or something, which is standard dot matrix, but it uses this dedicated port here, and that 48 volts supplies is the printer power supply. The printer doesn't have an AC or something on it, but I think it was the transformer that was smoked. Sort of bad news. So basically, I just unplugged the transformer, and that solved that problem. So again, back here we've got, I don't know, we've got memory expansion, a CPU board. I should pull that out and have a look at it, because there's already a CPU board on that side that has an Intel 8080 processor in it. Oh, that wasn't even plugged in. So what is this? This is this is a Z80 board. So apparently this has an optional Z80 processor in it for running CPM. Interesting. Should probably clean this board off and reseat that processor, but for now I'll just let it float back here. Come on. So that's that. I'm going to pop the cover back on this thing. Okay, back together, somewhat. But now you can kind of see the keyboard layout on this. So it's got these switches here. Start and stop the printer, start and stop the CRT. Basically, do you want the output to go to the CRT, or do you want to go directly to the printer? This switch, according to the manual controls, if you have it in, I think this is enabled, it'll scroll 4 or 5 lines, something like that, before it starts to print anything. And then you've got the reset, stop, and the IPL switches here. So flip this back on. Or not. I'm gonna unplug the thing. Right. Okay. So stop the CPU, initiate IPL, start. And what throws me, or what threw me about the monitor situation when I was initially troubleshooting that, was that nothing actually appears on screen until the system starts to boot. So, I was getting to that code 950, which, as I believe I've determined, was a problem with the printer interface. and hanging up. So that's why there was a blank video signal. So, okay, again, this thing tries to auto start this AP program and halts. So, you know, this thing was used in, as I think I mentioned in a previous video, a Sacramento Vintage Ford. It was the inventory control system for their entire warehouse. So they had this thing sitting in the office, and they had all these Weiss data terminals around the warehouse, which were used, which were the primary points of input for the system. This was just specific, you know, a server. It didn't really get much use, meaning somebody sitting at the keyboard. I mean, it's still got the plastic, like the covering on these trim pieces. So all the keys work, as I did a test earlier. They all seem to respond. So, you know, it's not a high-hour keyboard. The computer just pretty much sat doing its thing. So, whatever this program is, seems to be well, probably part of the inventory control software or something. Or the question is, this machine has a big old external hard drive, which I'll actually want to get hooked up and going. It's possible that the software is pulling that interface to try to find the drive or to try to initialize it, and is not finding it. You know, I don't know at this point. So we'll have to see. I have to fix this monitor problem. Anyway, try to dig out that Winchester drive and see what's going on with it. So I decided to go ahead and print out this manual for the Diablo 3200. And this is actually printed from a PDF copy that I commissioned the Computer History Museum to print out for me, based on, well, they had the original manual as an artifact in their archives. So for a small donation, they went through and scanned all 100 and some odd pages for me. And just putting it together now, I'm kind of getting a laugh, because I'm noticing that, well, obviously here's the front cover, and you know, it's got, for some reason, it's got two sides, but I'll come back to that. So, page 1, this is actually the last page going forward, so. Page 1, look at the position of the holes. So you can go through it and you can read it this way just fine. Okay, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, etc. But if this were bound and put into a binder, then it actually reads the mirror opposite. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So what is going on here? Somebody just punched this wrong at the office, or what happened? It doesn't really matter, because I can just take it and punch it down this side and be fine with it, but you know, this is somewhat of a mystery here. Compounding the mystery is we go to add the front cover, and it has the holes oriented on the left side. All right, so how was this thing put together originally? If we flip it over, it's got the holes on the wrong side. So what do you read the book backwards and you mirror the front page? What is this? Is this some kind of joke from the Diablo division of Xerox? Who knows?